So you finished the video yet?
What video?
The one about the manhwa everyone's talking about?
Manhwa? What's that? I'm a manga tuber.
You're kidding, right? What are you even doing right now?
Drawing the Black Swordsman.
Oh god? Is that Kirito? Nah, it's Kazuto Kirigaya. Yo, what's up guys, it's me Jake here, and recently I've been hearing a lot of people talking about a big manhwa. Yes, I've heard it for a really long time, but now that it actually has English physicals thanks to Eyes Press, a lot of people are talking about it way more now than I've ever heard, and that's going to be The Boxer. Now I did pick up Volume 1, and I have read Volume 1, and I want to talk to you guys about what I thought about it. But before I get into that, if you know nothing about The Boxer, here's a little bit of a synopsis. If you already know and have read The Boxer, you can probably just skip this part. But if you know nothing about The Boxer, stay tuned to hear what this story is about. So before I get into the main character or anything like that, I need to tell you guys a little bit about how this story will start. So, the story starts with the biggest coach in the world who has coached 5 world champions, Coach K, as he's trying to find his final prodigy to bring it to a huge role and become the next world champion. And then he goes and stumbles into a gym and finds Ryu, a white-haired boy who just started boxing, who is just given God-given talent, and it's just very much seen how good Ryu is at boxing. And Coach K very much thinks he's picking Ryu. But as he's walking away, he sees a kid get punched, that being our main character, Yu. And while he sees this kid get punched, he sees something he does not see in many boxers. And that is, when he looks at him, he gets scared. That means he knows Yu is strong. And Yu is a kid who was beaten up and tormented his whole life, and always alone with no family there to support him. So this is the journey of Yu trying to find his way and becoming a boxer. That's a little bit about what The Boxer is about so far. There's multiple different kind of main characters, but I'm going to be mainly talking about Yu, even though he barely shows up in this volume, I will admit, but he is the main character, so yes, that's a little bit of a synopsis, and let's just get on to the next point I want to talk about in this video. Now moving on to the characters category, like I was kind of finishing up my last point, if you heard that, where I talked about how there's basically kind of 3 main characters. J, or NJ, they say J on any list, but NJ in the volume, so I'm just going to call him J to make it easier for myself. Ryu, the white-haired prodigy that Coach K first finds, and Yu, the main character of this dude. And all 3 of them take way different approaches on boxing. This kid doesn't even start boxing till later than both of them, and he just gets tormented his whole life, and he kind of gets trained on how to get punched and how to throw a punch through that. And then we have Ryu, who's just someone who's God-given talent and has abilities that not many people have. Then Jay, whose dad was a boxer, not a crazy one, but not a weak one, who taught him as a kid and now still teaching him how to fight and box. So there's 3 very different approaches, which I do very much like, as they're very much apparent in Volume 1. I think it's a very, very interesting kind of take on it, since yes, most boxing series do have multiple characters, like Hajime no Ippo with Ippo, talking around all of them. I haven't read Ippo or watched Ippo, I just hear about that, so I could have got the names wrong too, so don't roast me on that. But I know that they do usually have multiple, but it's usually a weight class from what I hear. This one, I do like the approach they're taking with very, very different starts to how they start boxing and how they view boxing as well. All of them have very different views on boxing. Ryu just kind of wants to beat everyone up. Jay wants to just be a boxer, and Yu is just trying to find something that's fun and something that won't torment him. So I do like that a lot. I think the characters are probably the big point of the story where it really makes me get intrigued, and intrigues me the whole time is what these characters are going to do. The story is definitely in that it's a character-driven story like most series are, but I'm going to say this right now, this one is just very, very well done so far, and I cannot wait for more. I think the characters are very interesting. I think all the characters, even Coach K, and everything that they do and how they interact is just a very, very cool concept of what this creator is trying. So I'm going to say definitely very cool characters, and if you like character-driven stories, this is definitely one you should pick up. Now, for art. I am 50-50 with manhwa art. It's either very good or very bad in my eyes. This one is kind of the middle, I would say. There is very good art in this volume, and there's pretty bad art. I think the character design is pretty meh at times, but I do think whenever they're fighting, it looks beautiful. I think that the actual art for the fights and everything like that are just great. I think it is very well handled, and the choreography is good enough where you can actually understand what's going on. So far, there's not been too many fights comparative to what there probably will be in the future. But I'm going to say this right now, it is still very good looking at points. I think the one thing I do like is how the volume actually changed stuff from the actual webtoon. I can show you a very easy panel to show, because they have to have pages, it's not just scrolls. This was one page and it was just this, but it turned into a double page spread. Yes, it doesn't have that much on this page, but I just like those small little details that they do with this art. And I do like that kind of stuff when they add a little bit to the volume. I know some manga even do this, mostly Yoshihiro Togashi I know is a huge culprit of this, where I know the chapters he releases are basically rough sketches, and then when the volume comes out, it is just beautiful for Hunter x Hunter. I don't know if he did for Yu Yu Hakusho or Level E, but I do know he did that for Hunter x Hunter and is doing that for Hunter x Hunter. So I know that some mangaka do that, but I don't know how I feel about the actual full art on this, but I do like that little touch that they're doing with the change in the volumes, and I do like the kind of look of the volume. But I'm going to talk about that in the build quality, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. But I'm going to say this right now, it definitely could be better, but it definitely can be worse. I do think the color adds a lot to it. I think the color makes it way better, if I'm being honest. If this was a manga, this art would be probably atrocious in my eyes. But since it has color, it does amp it up quite a bit. So I will say I do like the art, not very much, but it's not terrible. I would say this would probably be like a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. It's not average, it's not bad, it's definitely a little bit above average, but nothing crazy. So I'm gonna say that's probably around where I'd rank it in terms of rating. Characters, by the way, I would probably give it like an 8.59. So yeah, but art's okay, nothing crazy, but nothing terrible. So that's all I have to say about the art. Now, I want to get into my overall thoughts about this volume before I get into the build quality and all that stuff. I'm not going to spoil anything in this section, so don't worry. You don't have to skip this section if you don't want to get spoiled. I'm just going to be talking about what I thought about it, what they did right, what they did wrong. So, nothing crazy. It's not going to be any spoilers. But I'm going to say this right now. I do think that the characters were done right, and I do think the art was pretty mad, like I said earlier. But I do think the story is very interesting so far. I do like the kind of approach they're taking it. I do like I said very much earlier, where I said they barely have the main character in this volume. And I think that's a very interesting take on a first volume, is having a main character this interesting like you, and barely using him, and using him as the kind of plot device for other kind of storylines you're using and driving through this volume 1. I think that is a very interesting take for volume 1, which I've never seen before, and that's probably why I got hooked very easily, is because it's not trying to build the main character, it's trying to build the other characters so the main character has something to grasp on and try to catch up to. And I think that's a very cool concept that I'm very much enjoying. And I know this volume series is finished, and I think it's going to be 11 or 12 volumes, so I'm going to say this right now. I think this might be very much up there for a top 15, top 20 spot if it nails the landing and even continues being as good as this volume 1 was. I know, and I hear a lot of people rating this and raving about it so much, even after the volume 1. I've heard people who finish it say it's amazing, and I know the AniList ratings are mostly 8s to 10s, so I know that this is probably going to keep up the pace that it's currently at. So I'm very much excited to see where it goes, and I cannot wait to read more of it. But yeah, then now let's just get on to the build quality before I rant and rant and rant. Ice Press, I think, did a pretty good job on these. I think the binding makes it very stable when you're reading it. It's not hard to open, but it's not easy to open at the same time, which I do like. I think it helps me feel more comfortable when I'm reading this to open it a little bit more without ruining the volume itself. I do think the page quality could be better. I don't think it bleeds through that much, but I do think that the actual pages, I wish it was more laminated than what it is, because I think that the pages themselves feel more papery laminated than just straight up laminated. I know you might be saying that you don't want the laminated pages, they're not good for you, but for someone like me who has clammy hands, I'm gonna be honest here, I feel like these are just uncomfortable to hold at times. But overall, I think the overall build quality and look of this volume are very nice. I think the cover and spine and back all look very nice. I like the little bit in the back with the little boxing glove right there. I do think it's overall a pretty nice looking volume.
Here's what it looks like on a Target shelf. There's going to be an estimated 12 to 13 of these, and this volume is half an inch wide, so if I'm going to take that, it's going to be around 6.5 to 7 inches, and this is a 23-inch shelf, so it's going to take up almost perfectly a third of this shelf. So it's not the craziest amount of shelf room, but it does take up quite a bit in terms of one shelf. I would say this is pretty good in terms of size, but it's all up to your decision if you think it's worth that size. Since this is what it looks like on a Billy, it will take up, like I said, 6.5 to 7 inches. The Billy is 30 inches wide, so it's going to take up about a quarter of a Billy. I'm going to say this right now, since there's going to be an estimate of 12 to 13 of these, it's going to be an estimated around $240 to $260 USD before tax. I think that's kind of expensive, but mostly worth it, to be honest.
Now, the question everyone should be asking right now, should you buy it? Now, if you don't know, this is $20 American and $26 Canadian. I think it's a decent price range, but for the quality of the paper, I was very much expecting pure laminated paper. But if you've ever had a comic book, it's kind of like the paper in some of the hardcovers, not the omnibuses. It's kind of like, it is laminated, but it's not like the fully laminated pages where it's kind of rough. I don't know how I feel about these pages. I feel like I have semi-clammy hands at points, so it kind of messes with these pages a bit whenever I'm holding them. But otherwise, other than that, I think the quality is very good. Through the pages, I don't see any bleeding through of the art. I think it's a very good take on the art. I think they made it thick enough where it's not actually going to bleed through, even though there's a lot of white portions because it's supposed to be scrollable. There's a lot of white portions in between panels, but they still have that not bleed through ability, and I think that's a very cool thing that they had, and I don't know how they did it, but they did it very well. Overall, I think the build quality is very nice. This is going to take up about a third, I think I said, or a little bit under a third for a Billy shelf, so I'm probably going to pick all of it up myself. I think it looks really nice. I think the spines are nice, and you know how I am. I'm a stickler for spines. If it has a nice spine, plus I really like this on it, if there's a nice spine, I'm probably going to be picking it up. But yeah, I think it's a pretty nice kind of size for it. I think it also takes up around, I think, actually a third for a Target shelf one's going to be around done. So it's also not going to be that bad in terms of shelving for that too. I think Summertime Rendering was a little bit more than this actually. I think it was quite a bit more than this actually. And that is 7 volumes. Of course it is supposed to be 14, but all I'm saying is this is not going to take up that much room. It is kind of expensive per volume, so it's up to you. I think it's worth it, but I can see how you can say $20 a volume is definitely not worth it, even though it is full color. I can see that. So it is really up to your choice if you think it's a little bit out of your price range per volume, because it is a thinner one too. But I think it's worth it. If you guys want to say it's worth it, you guys can buy this as well. I think you should definitely buy it though. In my opinion, it's not that much more. I think normally press volume is 15, so it's $5 more, so it's nothing crazy, but I can see where it's coming from, where it's a little too expensive. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I think it is worth it, but it's up to you. It's up to your wallet, but yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I see you guys next time. Peace!